Hello, my name is Hester Volten. I work for the National Institute of Public Health and the Environment in the Netherlands. We do a lot of citizen science with people who want to measure air quality or other environmental stuff. And this is a very interesting subject. And this lecture will be about how this citizen science affects democracy. And I will start by giving an introduction in who I am, what institute I work for, and what do I mean by citizen science. What you should know is that by education, I'm an astronomer, so I am not a social scientist. I was not educated in the subject of democracy or citizen science, and everything I will tell you here, I learned in practice. What you see here, by the way, is our sister planet Mars. And I studied planetary atmospheres, and what you see here, that if they would have a democracy on Mars, dust storms would be high on the political agenda, because what you see here is Mars on a clear day and Mars on a day when there are fierce dust storms. So when I started studying planetary atmospheres, a lot of the things I was studying were also relevant for planet Earth, because this dust that you see here on Mars, we have the same type of dust also on Earth, and it's a major environmental issue. And so that is how I came to work for the RIVM, the National Institute for Public Health and the Environment. I'm working in the department where we are studying the environment. And because RIVM is an institute that does research on which politicians can base their policies, and the RIVM is the institute where you go to if you are interested in the health of people, and especially in how to keep them healthy, from how to keep them from not getting sick, and a healthy living environment without pollution or other issues is for the RIVM a major subject. As I already told you, I do a lot of citizen science, and there are many different definitions of citizen science. One of the most used one is where it is defined as citizens contributing to scientific research, mostly under the directions of people working in academia. But this is not necessary. You can also define citizen science as simply as science being done by non-professionals, and that can be with or without the help of professionals. And the big yields that you get from citizen science is that there is a larger connection to society, people participating in science. They also bring in their perspective, and they have different goals than scientists, and they use different methods. To make that more concrete, for example, if you are studying air quality, like me, in a national institute, then our perspective will be national. We are interested how the air quality is in the Netherlands and whether on average that is acceptable or not. Whereas if you are a citizen scientist doing measurements of air quality in your neighborhood, your goal may be that you want to know whether you can go out and do sports because you are asthmatic and you are suffering from high, if there are high levels of air pollution. So in that case, your goal is different, your perspective is different, and that also means that you can use different methods. For example, if you are interested in only in whether you can go to sport or not, then you need to know when the concentrations of pollution are high, but whether they are very accurately, if the concentrations are low, you are not so interested in. Also, you want to know the air quality now, and not a yearly average. So this is very important aspect of citizen science. For a scientist, you always have to keep in mind, why are these people doing these measurements? And they may have very different reasons to do the research than you have. So the citizen science subjects I will be talking about all have to do with the environment. Of course, there are many other different subjects you can do citizen science in, but this is my subject, this is my research field, and I started to get involved in citizen science around 2012. And that was because I met this guy you see here in the middle, Frans Snick, and he had built a beautiful instrument to study particulate matter, so dust in the atmosphere. And I asked him to build one for me, and you see it here on the left. Packed in aluminum foil. So this was the instrument I asked him to build. And it was a beautiful instrument, very elegant scientific method, but also very difficult to explain. And so he built a tiny instrument for demonstrations. And he also had a new iPhone, because around 2012 everybody was starting to buy the iPhone 4, which was the first smartphone to really make it big. And so he found out that he could build a small instrument to put on his phone. And he turned to me and said, Hester, we are going to do citizen science. We are going to measure with thousands of people at the same time. Are you in? Is RIVM in? And I'm here, the person from RIVM. There's also people here from ESRON and from KNMI, so different institutes, but we are all astronomers and physicists. And I went and I didn't know whether RIVM would be into citizen science. So I went to my boss and I asked him, hey, Dan, are we doing citizen science? Is RIVM into citizen science? And he said, boy, that's a good question. Let's go to our center, the head of our center. And so we went to the head of our center and we asked her, hey, are we going to do citizen science? Is that something RIVM does? And she said, good question. I don't know. Let's go to the sector director. And so I went to the center director, which was one level below the director general of RIVM. And I asked him, look, we have this beautiful instrument. I started explaining about the instrument. He said, Hester, I could listen to this for hours, but what I'm really interested in is what citizen science can do for us, because we as an institute, as an authority on health research, are experiencing that people are not trusting our advice at face value, that they are questioning our research, that they say, I want to make my own decisions. And so the world is changing, society is changing, and we are looking for a response to that, and citizen science could be an answer for that. And so that is why I said, yes, Frans, I want to be involved. Let's do this. Let's go measure with our phones what dust is there in the atmosphere. And actually, if you look at citizen science, it's a very old movement. There were in the past many scientists who were not trained to be scientists who were still doing science. So, for instance, clergymen writing dictionaries or school teachers studying nature. But the big game changer in this age is the access we all have now to information, which has grown enormously. And that is to a large part due to the smartphone. Because of the smartphone, you have in your pocket a camera, a microphone, internet connection, GPS, a compass, A computer, in other words, you have a lot of information in your pocket. And that means that information has become much more available to the public, which has, of course, started already earlier with the upcoming of the internet and the computers that everybody have, but also because people are higher and better educated now than ever before. So we have the democratization of knowledge, which is changing society. And what does that mean for democracy? Because we have now a democratization of knowledge, but can you turn that around? I think you can turn it around because there is nothing as vital for democracy as the access to information. We all know how important journalists are for a democracy, how important it is to be educated to have a democracy. In fact, if you look at the early democracies in Greece, for example, the people who had access to vote or to be able to influence policies were by no accident people who also had access to education and information. You had to be male, you had to be freeborn, you had to be an adult. Women were out, children were out. Why? They did not have access to information, so they could not participate. So if you change the access to information, to knowledge, also democracy will change. So when the democracy, as we know it now, started somewhere in the 19th century, and women were also wanted to have access to having vote. That also coincided with the access they wanted to universities, to schooling, stuff like that. And this is one of the things I learned from the ISPEX projects, that one of the ways that citizen science um, uh, also helps people to get informed is just by the huge amount of publicity it generated. The newspapers were all full of articles about this wonderful project. Journalists were very excited about these normal people going out to do measurements on air quality. And so there was a lot of publicity and all very positive publicity. So that was very interesting for us to learn. So this is not a presentation about ISPEC, so I briefly glanced over the biggest lessons we had from ISPEC. One of them was, first of all, people love to participate. It was not difficult to engage people. The results were great scientifically, which is also important because otherwise citizen science isn't science. And the publicity was great. But there were also a couple of things that did not go very well for us from RIVM. And one of the things was that my colleagues were not very happy with these measurements done by phones because actually they could not work with it. It was not close enough to the information we needed to do our official monitoring tasks. So to cut a long story, so we decided to go on doing citizen science, but to use technology that produced results that were closer related to the kind of data that we are measuring with the official air quality monitoring stations. And funny enough, that technology, because of the smartphone technology, became a lot cheaper, because for the mobile phones, they had to produce Wi-Fi modules and GPS stuff in very large quantities, very cheaply, and it was miniaturized. So the modules to build a air quality sensor also became small and cheap. And so the same development of these smartphones also produce as a side effect um, air quality sensors that were actually quite affordable. So there are these cheap sensors, people are buying them, they want to know the air quality, they want to measure it for themselves. And for us, the big question was, okay, if we think that citizen science is a nice development, what is our role in that? What do the people want from us? So the thing we had to learn, and the most difficult thing, is how to listen, how to listen to what citizen scientists ask from us. What is our role in this? And since we are the National Institute for Public Health and the Environment, and we do the official air quality measurements, the big question people had for us is, hey, I'm doing these measurements. Is this measurement okay? How good is it? And can you tell me something about if whether this measurement makes sense or not? And this is ironic because a lot of experts doing doing air quality measurements have doubts about citizen science because they think the citizen scientists are not interested in data quality, but they are. They know that their instruments only cost around 50 euros and that an official instrument costs 20,000 euros. They know that they don't have the same quality, but they do want to know about what the measurement mean and what they can do with it. So we listen to these questions. They also want to know more about air quality, what we are doing, and we also noticed that they saw great benefit in sharing their data, and so we also um, made arrangements for them to be able to collect the data in one place and to visualize it. Again, to cut a long story short, this resulted in the Measure Together program. So on the Measure Together website, people can look for information. What sensor can I use? Where can I share the data? What is my neighbor person measuring? Can I compare the air quality measurements? Stuff like that. You can all find that on the Measure Together data portal. And you can see here that a lot of all these dots on the map are people that are doing measurements, and there's quite a lot of people doing the measurements, and these are not our measurements. People did not get a sensor from us. They bought their own sensors, they organized themselves in citizen science communities, and we are providing, so to speak, the infrastructure. Because that is the secret. Infrastructure is the secret. If you want people to ride a bike, what you do is you build bicycle lanes. You are not going to give them a bike. You let them decide for themselves what type of bike they like, what they want to use, and they have complete autonomy in what kind of bike they ride and how they ride it and where they ride it. The only thing you do is you provide bicycle lanes. And so why do people cycle? Because they have somewhere to go. There are safe ways for them to go. And the same thing we did with the Measure Together program. We gave people things to do with their data. So if you want to do measurements, we tell people, look, you could use this and this sensor, and this is the way to visualize it. And because we make it very simple for people to do the measurements, many people will use it. So this is what happened. We started making a map, and we gave some people sensors, and we started with 68 sensors on the map. People started sending us messages, hey, I have a sensor as well. Do you want my data? We said yes, and 3 years later, we had 1,000 sensors on the map. And right now, I've lost count, but we are now roughly at 4,000 sensor kits out there in the Netherlands. And again, these were not paid by us, they were paid by the people, sometimes by local governments and stuff like that. And I will come in a moment to what that means for democracy. But first, I would like to point out that this is not a typical Dutch phenomenon, that there are many more people out there doing citizen science. And I should give a shout out to Sensor Community, which is a bottom-up citizen science organization. And they are doing essentially the same as what we are doing. They provide people with a simple solution to do these measurements, and also with a map where they can combine the measurements and work together. And so we should acknowledge them for their work, but it also shows that this is something that is going on worldwide. And it is also important that this is an international thing that's going on, citizen science and air quality, because air quality policies are also made on an EU level. So all countries have similar regulations about air quality, and to share approaches about air quality and citizen science across Europe is vital. And I'm also involved in this European project CityOps, and this is how I met the teacher from Applied University in Maastricht, who asked me to give a presentation about citizen science and democracy. And when she asked me to give a presentation about this subject, I immediately said, yes, that is an interesting angle that I had not done before, because I have given many presentations about the technology behind citizen science and air quality, about how to set up a Measure Together platform, about innovation, about many different angles, but not yet focused on democracy. And I immediately realized that she was right, that perhaps the biggest benefits that you get from citizen science in air quality are in the field of how democracy works. So let's look at a couple of benefits of citizen science for democracy. If you are doing citizen science, you are by definition doing something that has societal relevance. Otherwise, people would not participate. Why would they participate if they were not interested in the subject? They are doing citizen science on air quality because they think it is an important subject, and they want to be heard. They want to have their perspective being included. So the person I mentioned before that wanted to measure air quality because he was having lung problems and wanted to be able to go out of his house to do sports, he wants to be heard. He wants the air quality to be better, and he wants the politicians to take his perspective into account. Or people who are doing their own measurements, they want to sometimes do the measurements because they don't trust the government. They don't trust our measurements, and they want to see if it really is true what we are reporting. Or people are they just want to have people be aware of the air quality problem. For example, there's a lot of wood burning going on in the neighborhood, and you want to have policymakers, local policymakers, or national policymakers, or European policymakers to do something about it. Or the other way around, you are a policymaker and you want to have policies, for example, about wood burning, but you want the general public to be supportive of these new policies. That are all reasons to do citizen science. You get a better understanding of the problems through citizen science, which again can result in better policies, and last but not least, you are giving a voice to the silent majority. People who are doing citizen science are open to different outcomes. Otherwise, you are not going to do measurements. If you already know what the outcomes should be, you should not be doing citizen science. So people who are doing citizen science are usually open for different outcomes, for different insights that they can reach in that way. They are open to dialogue. So it often opens up more constructive dialogue than if you only have people shouting, no, I'm right, you are wrong, and vice versa. And one of the things that were very valuable for us at RIVM, the National Institute of Public Health and the Environment, is to learn through citizen science what is going on in society, what people actually find important, and which people are worried about what. And one very beautiful example is this one about Measure Together Meijerijstad, Samen Meten Meijerijstad. I found them on YouTube because I was looking for Measure Together Samen Meten, and I found them and I thought, oh boy, they have stolen our name and we don't know nothing about them. So they had this kickoff meeting on YouTube because it was COVID time, so everybody was in a lockdown, and that's why they recorded the meeting. It was an online meeting, and they started to explain that they wanted to measure the air quality because they were worried. They were in a rural area in the Netherlands. And if you look at air quality problems and people talking about air quality problems, they will always be talking about big cities. So air quality problems are usually associated with industries and traffic in big cities. But Meijerijstad is not a big city, but they are worried about air quality. So for us, that was already the first lesson. There are people in rural areas that feel left out because the air quality research that is done officially is usually done in big cities or around industries. But these people were worried because there were people in this area where they live. They were affected by COVID more than in the rest of the country, and they were worried that this might have something to do with air quality problems. So they had this kickoff in December 2020, and 3 months later they had 80 plus sensors online, which is a tremendous speed to set up a project like that. If an official institute like mine is going to set up a project with 80 sensors, we would still be having meetings about how to do that, and they already did it within 3 months. And the way they did it was very beautiful. They had a local expert on particulate matter, which is the main pollution source. They went to the local government. They asked for some money from an innovation subsidy source. And they said, we are going to use the method as prescribed by RIVM. And so the local government said, oh, that sounds very reliable. That sounds like a good idea. Here you have some money. The rest you have to pay yourself. And the people build these sensors in workshops. And so within 3 months, they had a beautiful network set up. They gave us a call, say, hey, we have this network. Can we be also on your website? Of course, the measurements already showed up there because they were already connected to Samen Meten. And so, yeah, they earned their name, Samen Meten Meijerijstad, Measure Together Meijerijstad. And we learned that the rural areas is where the people are worried. And here is a beautiful other example of people showing what they care for. This is a top-down example. This is the northern part of the Netherlands, where we only have 3 official measurement stations because there is not a lot of pollution there. If you look at the yearly average map, this is the cleanest part of the Netherlands. The air quality is best there. There's no industry, there's not a lot of traffic compared to the rest of the Netherlands. And then this guy from the University of Groningen, Theo, he called us up and said, hey, I'm going to put 1,000 sensor kits throughout the provinces of Friesland, Groningen, and Drenthe, so the whole north of the Netherlands. And we told him, look, that you have no air quality problems, and what are you going to tell the people? And he said, no, but people are worried here. They will participate. And he was totally right. And so within also a short time, he used students to help the people build the sensors. He used he played municipalities against each other, saying, "Hey, the new municipality next to you is participating and giving subsidies. How about you? Why are you not participating?" So, and within a short time, he had the whole north of the Netherlands full of sensor kits. And of course, he was right. People were worried, and these worries now showed up. And of course, to come back to democracy, if a local politician sees that there are so many people interested in air quality in his neighborhood, of course this will end up on the political agenda as well. So this gave us beautiful data, but it also gave us insight on what people find important, and it also gives insight to local politicians what people find interesting. If so many people in your province are interested in air quality, that tells you something. It tells you that you should put this on the political agenda. Now a totally different example. This guy that you see here on the photo with his phone, he is measuring noise from airplanes, and he's from Schiphol Watch, which is an action group which is fighting for having less planes on Schiphol, especially at night. And they feel completely left in the lurch by the government. They have no trust in the government whatsoever because they feel that the government is playing them and not hearing them and not taking their problems seriously. And the way he tries to attack this is by doing measurements with this phone. So we called him up and said, look, we have tried measuring with phones and we don't see that this is very productive, but we do want to do other type of measurements of these planes and see how it affects people and to see what the problem is. And so we talked to him and he became less activist towards us and very nice actually. And we started to do also noise measurements to see what the story is of the people living around Schiphol. Because if you look at it, the distrust that these people have sometimes for what the government does, it has to do not so much with that the government does anything wrong or is telling lies. The only thing is that what the government does, the perspective that the government has, is not relevant for the people that live in a certain place. You live in a street, in a house, and what the government is looking at is a yearly average for the whole country. And so if you, or maybe the yearly average for the area around Schiphol, and if you look at the noise level on a yearly average base, then that has nothing to do with what the people are suffering from. You are not suffering from a yearly average noise level. You are suffering from a peak level. So, for example, for air quality, this is the same. You are not suffering from an average yearly average air quality problem. You are suffering for example, from the guy next door who is doing wood burning, and you cannot sleep at night because the air is so polluted. So on a yearly average map, your house won't stand out. You will be perhaps living in Zealand, and the average air quality levels are quite good. But if you are living in a street where everybody's burning wood, then at certain times you will suffer from the peaks. And this is just not reflected on the official maps. So the official maps are not wrong, they are only not relevant. Then the same goes for noise. So if you look in the areas around Schiphol, they make these nice contour plots of where people are entitled to have problems with the noise. And the people we spoke that were participating in our citizen science project, they got very, very angry at these contour plots because they were living outside the contour plots, but they sometimes have days or nights where there were planes coming over every 2 minutes. And you look at the plots and you immediately see what the problem is there. This is terrible. If you live in an area like that and you have that many planes coming over, it could be that on a yearly average you don't have a problem, but at certain nights or certain days, you are living in a hell. And this picture is showing that. This picture is telling that story. So if you want society or your policymakers to understand what your problem is, this is the story you are telling. So, and this is what you can do with citizen science, because it's with citizen science you can put up this noise sensor at your house, and you can show the story of what you are experiencing. All the planes coming over your house, disturbing it when you are speaking to people, or when you're listening to the radio, and you cannot hear anything because of the noise of the planes. And you cannot read probably what is written here. This is an article written actually by Schiphol Watch. So this guy who doesn't trust the government is working with us to find people to participate in this project, because he doesn't trust the government, but he does trust us because we are listening to him and we are helping them to tell this story and to make people understand that it's not the yearly average that bothers them. It's not even the exact height of the peaks that is important. It doesn't matter whether the peaks are 80 decibel or 75 decibel, which is a large difference if you look at from a perspective of doing these measurements. But for them, it's the peaks that count. So this gives a different perspective on how you could assess the trouble that people experience from these these airplanes. And so this gives a different story to tell to the policymakers that you want to take measures. So this is a form of influencing the policymakers, and it's a form of direct democracy by trying to explain what is your problem. This is a very similar example. This is about train noise, and the people in this little village is called America, and it's actually in Limburg. And you can see here from this newspaper clipping, these people have the train coming practically through their back garden, and they have huge huge peaks of noise. Sometimes during nighttime, you see here the picture of what they measure. And this is also a story which a report that they went to the local policymakers. Look, this is our problem. We are not people just complaining. We have the data to confirm what we are going through. And this did earn them a place at the table at the local policymakers. It does not solve the problem directly, but at least it puts the problem on the political agenda, and they are taken more seriously for having the data to back it up. So that is a very interesting development. But for one of the more bigger citizen science projects that certainly had a huge impact on democracy, we have to go to Flanders, Belgium. If you want to see wonderful things going on with citizen science, then Flanders, Belgium is really the place to be. To give you an example, they also have this beautiful website with all the air quality measurements on the map. So that's very similar to the measure together that we have. So it's for them it's called Samen voor zuivere lucht.eu. So go check it out. It's very cool. But that is not the project I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk to you about the Curious Noses project in Flanders. That was actually a huge, huge citizen science project where 20,000 people, so 20,000 citizen scientists, measured air pollution by traffic. And it was a project that was a collaboration between the university. Their scientific question was like, okay, we have this model of NO2, which is essentially the exhaust from the traffic, NO2. We have this model describing the NO2, and we want to check whether this model is correct, which is a very strong scientific question. And they wanted to have these people participate for 1 month. They put on tubes on their site, and they had the newspaper, the Standard, a very large newspaper in Flanders, helping them with the communication. So there were lots of parties involved, and they had a huge project, and people did the measurements with these tubes that you see on the left. You can put them in the window using this board. It says here measures curious noses. Curious noses, by the way, is Flemish for a nosy child. So it's a pun and a very good one, and that also helped for the project. And so they measured 1 month the air quality problems produced by traffic, and the results came out right before the local elections. And all the newspapers were full of this project. So the local elections that year were really about air quality. And so there were other subjects, of course, on the agenda, but the main one was the air quality. So all the political parties had to tell about their plans to improve the air quality, what they were going to do about it. So everybody in Flanders was aware, not just the people that participated, the 20,000 people, but everybody was aware of the air quality problems. Everybody understood how the air quality worked, because the newspaper, they made video clips, they wrote articles. So the knowledge level of people in Flanders, not just the scientists who learned a lot about air quality, but also the journalists, also from other newspapers, not just the Standard, because they wanted to keep up. They also wanted to write about this. And the citizens, the knowledge level really went up. So I asked my colleagues in Flanders, the ones from the local environmental protection agencies, said, hey, what do you think is the lasting effect of this project? And they said, well, the dialogue about air quality politics has gone up to a higher level. Politicians know what they are talking about. The citizens know what they are talking about. Journalists are reporting about it on a very high level. So this is one of the biggest recorded impacts on democracy. It just raises the level of also the quality of the policies is affected by how this citizen science project played out. So it's really beautiful. Go check it out because they are still active doing also other citizen science projects. So I've given now a couple of examples of how citizen and citizen science try to affect policies and how they in fact are working on a direct democracy, having direct influence on policymakers and on discussions about policies. But a big challenge remains the policymakers themselves, because they are often stuck in fixed ways and procedures that they are doing things, and they could make more use of citizen science. So the big question for professionals is, hey, policymakers, are there policies that you would like to implement, that you want support for, and that you now are having trouble with? And a very beautiful example in the Netherlands, I suppose in other parts of Europe as well, is wood burning. Wood burning, I mean, the people in the Netherlands and Flanders are not particularly poor, and is a very densely populated area. So wood burning is actually something that we don't rely on. We don't have to burn wood because we don't have other options. People burn wood because they think it's good for climate, which I think is not really true. Or they think it's just cozy and nice and fun to make fire in your house. And it is actually very bad for air quality. And there are many people suffering health effects directly from this wood burning. People who live in the house where the wood burning is going on, but also their neighbors. And so there are actually municipalities in the Netherlands looking for putting bans on wood burning. And the policymakers working on that are probably not by accident, mainly in cities where there's lots of citizen science going on. So citizen science can help you actually to find support for these policies. And this is not only on the local level. You can also think on the national level or the EU level. What are the big problems that we are facing in terms of the environment? The climate problem. We have to implement very unpopular policies and we have to look for very effective policies, the things that really help. If you look at climate change, heat resilience in cities, what are the places where the biggest problems occur? These are all things you can assess using citizen science, using the local knowledge from the citizens. And so it's not just air pollution, but it's also pollution by seas. Or, for example, if you want to ban straws, plastic straws, and you can find them everywhere on the beach, and you know that there is someone still using plastic straws or plastic cutlery. So there are many, many ways to use citizen science actually to support policies. And there are many citizen scientists out there that are definitely willing to help you. So the big challenge for the policymakers is, hey, how do I make use of these citizen scientists? And because these citizen scientists are actually wanting to help you, they are looking for ways to have impact on policy, and they want to help you have better, more effective policies. They are out there to have their voices heard. They want to have this way of democracy. So there are many stories I could tell you about citizen science affecting democracy, but I want to round off here. And there's just so many impacts that citizen science on environmental issues can have on democracy, and many have to do with being aware of what's going on in society, being aware of what people find important, on making a problem more visible, telling stories about the problems, also having a dialogue based on a shared knowledge base. And if you do the measurements themselves are not opinions, so you can have look at the measurements from different perspectives and still agree on the measurements. So it builds trust, it depolarizes the discussion. The discussion will be held on a higher knowledge level. The policies can be better, more focused on what the local people will tell you that the problem is. And so there are many, many ways that citizen science can contribute to democracy, and in fact that citizen science and technology is changing democracy. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation and that you learned something. And if you want to know more about Measure Together, then please check out these websites. Or if you want to have more information or still have questions, do send us an email, because one thing we learned through working with this citizen science method is that we want to be available. So if you'll send email to us, we will respond. Thank you.